So this week is Men's Mental Health Awareness Week, and we've been doing talks here on Winston Scars around men and mental health. On Tuesday, I had a conversation around mentoring with Eddie Hippolyte. On Sunday, I am talking to a therapist around the underlying causes of mental health and treatment, and some more carrying on that conversation with a male. Now, offline, I have been having conversations that has inspired me to do this video to talk about some of the root causes of mental health. And because I find that some people are so eager to resist the title of mental health that they might miss the point altogether. Now, we don't want anybody to miss out. And so that's why I decided to come and have this conversation. And I want you to, whether you have a diagnosed disorder or mental illness, or you are fine and in your well-being, you're okay, I think it's important to listen anyway and listen to all the steps. So first, although we might not have a diagnosed disorder, we're all vulnerable to mental health, because one of the things that makes me know that we live in a world of sin, and sin impacts us in many different ways. So I'm going to talk about some of the underlying causes, and then I'm going to talk about some of the things that we can do if we have these experiences that can help us. So number one, some of the things to look out for is stress. How stress is a massive cause of mental health. Look for areas in your life that is stressful. Some of the common areas in our lives that are stressful is finances. We are living in a really challenging time at the moment. A lot of people are struggling. We see it everywhere. We see it in our community. We see it in our families. We see it at church. It's on the news, people on social media. People are struggling. Lots of people are losing their jobs. They're high in unemployment, and people are just generally struggling financially. Now, if you are struggling financially, it really is important to get help, to talk to somebody, to get some help to work out a strategy that can help you, because this can be a really big stressor that can lead to health concerns, both mental and physical. And then there's the relationship, whether it's with your children or with a spouse or parents or family members. Relationships are a big area of stress, especially if the relationships are breaking down and there's nothing that you feel that you can do about it. Now, stress can impact our relationships. Financial stress can impact our relationships. It can put us in real vulnerable positions, and we might not have the communication skills to effectively talk about it. That might be helpful. So if you are having relational challenges, you might want to see a therapist, talk to your pastor, share with a friend, get help individually, get help as a couple. There's so many affordable resources that are available that can help us. One of the things that won't help is if we bury our heads in the sand and pretend that it's not happening. Then it will cause the problem to become bigger. And before we know it, we're struggling with our mental health. And it could have been avoidable if we had dealt with the problems as we discover them. Another stressor for many people is work. Work might be stressful. If work is stressful for you, then also I'm going to encourage you to get support. If work is stressful in the sense that you have a job and you're being stressed at work, or you don't have a job because of unemployment and you're stressed about that. How am I going to provide for my family? How am I going to look after my children? I know a lot of that kind of pressure is on men, and sometimes men feel like they should carry it alone and they shouldn't talk about it. It's their responsibility. In the community, in the African Caribbean community, I know that is a massive thing where men feel like, or been socialized to believe, that all the responsibility is theirs, all the weight rests on them, and they must do it, and they must do it alone. And there's sometimes when that is coupled with certain narratives in Christian community around the man being the priest and the provider, that can be a lot of pressure if you've lost your job, or if you're working in an area you're not earning enough, or you're just struggling in work. You might feel like you're struggling, but you might not feel like you can talk about it, because if you talk about it, who are you going to talk about it to? Are they capable of listening to you? Will you have to leave your job? And all of those insecurities coupled with the burden of provision and care that you feel like you have to carry alone, can have a massive impact on mental health. So if you have these challenges, it's really important to get support. If you can't talk to your spouse, your partner, if you can't talk to a family member, a counselor is really an effective person to talk to listen, who will listen to you and help you find solutions around work so that you can work in a job that you like, you can manage the stresses of work without them overtaking you and create other problems in other areas of your life. Now, we're all vulnerable to work stress and relationship stress and financial pressures. But as I know, seeing the men in my life, how they work and how they manage these, and in my work as a counselor, I know these are massive things for men. So think about the stresses in your life. How are you managing them? Are you getting support for them? Do you feel like you have to manage them alone? If you feel like you have to manage them alone, where did you learn that from? Who told you that as a man you have to carry this on your own and that you can't talk to anybody about it? Because if you believe that you have to carry it alone, that narrative comes from somewhere. You didn't develop it on your own by yourself. You know, society teaches us so many things, and we're learning so much from society, and it's there subconsciously, and we just act it out without questioning. So question, why do I feel like I have to carry this alone? Where can I get support, and who can I get support from, and who can I talk to that might help me? Another thing that you can do is prayer, but not on its own, you know, coupled with when you're praying, be prepared for what God says to you, because He says we should bear one another's burdens. So that means as a man, you don't have to carry it alone, because there's a directive that is given to other members of the community to help you to bear that burden. And He also said that His burden is light, His yoke is easy, and His burden is light. Now, if you are struggling and you've not even prayed about it because you have the preconceived idea because of the narrative in society that you must carry it alone, chances are you're not honestly going to God and said, this is too much, I can't cope, send help. So pray about it so you can carry His light burden, because He wants to carry yours. Another root factor in mental health is genetics. Is there mental health in your family? And if there is mental health in your family, what are the things that you need to do differently in order to look after yourself, to mitigate against the risk factors in genetics for yourself? And the last one I want to look at, and of course, this is not an exhaustive list, there are many more things that impact mental health. Childhood trauma. There are many areas that we look at when we think about childhood trauma. It's growing up in poverty. It's parental mental health, parental separation or divorce. It's uh, witnessing violence in your community, is sexual trauma and physical abuse. It's neglect and abandonment, and it's the few more areas that we look at. But if you've had these experiences, it is really important to also get help, because we know through research that people who experience childhood trauma are twice more likely to have depression. There's anxiety and other mental health factors that you're at risk of when you have repressed trauma, repressed pain. Because once again, the narrative might be men shouldn't talk about it, men shouldn't talk to people, men don't need help, men can solve problems on their own. We know that to not be true. And we know that to be a narrative that is pushed by society that is really harmful and detrimental to your mental health. So if you see yourself in any one of these that I've talked about, stress, genetics, or childhood trauma, I'm encouraging you to reach out for support, get help, talk to somebody, have a place that you regularly can go to talk, to offload, to hear it, to be heard, and to hear other people. And in community, you'll get that support that will protect you and mitigate against the risk factors that makes us vulnerable to mental health. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.